You are watching Coaching Chats with Marina and Caroline,
I'm Marina Baranowski of the Coaching Marina.
and I am Caroline Day with Safe Data Change. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, my friend. How are you today? We have a very interesting topic today.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to talk about this wonderful world of rejection. Did you just do like the loser? Oh, no, it's the
Oh,
loser, not the
loser.
winner.
No,
Yeah, so that word rejection, I think it's such a hot topic because all of us as humans have
everyone.
felt rejected at least at some point in their lives. And it means different things to different people. And I know that you had so much to talk about rejection because it actually became a turning point in your life, understanding your own rejection. So if you could just start with that because you have a beautiful story to tell.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Rejection is something, and again, whenever we said this, everybody, everybody experiences rejection at some point in their life, some more than others. I happen to be one of those people where I received many and much and often on rejection. It was definitely a lesson that I needed to learn. So rejection happened often. When I started my career and I went through my career in a very blind, well, I'm here, so I'm just going to do this sort of way. Um, the rejection happened where I got fired. And then trying to find another job afterwards was rejection after rejection after rejection. And the original thought process of, well, I'm just obviously not good enough then.
Mm, that's juicy. Okay, so let's reframe what we heard first, right? Because the fact when we get fired, it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we were rejected. But when you got fired, you immediately went into I was rejected, right? And then not finding another opportunity, maybe none of them aligned to your skills or what they were looking for, but not being hired again and again also felt like rejection.
Right.
Okay.
So what I had to do in coming to terms with this was understand that rejection was not a verdict of my worth. It was just a situation that happened that was a lesson for me to understand and learn. In this case, it was maybe you're not supposed to be doing that job anymore. And that opened up a whole lot of doors for me to at least explore those options.
Yeah. No, let's talk about the rejection first before we talk about the transformation, right? Because we just started. So, so why did it feel like rejection to you? What did it mean to you, like by not getting a job? Why is that rejection in the first place?
The rejection, not getting the job, and going on interviews and having discussions and, putting myself out there, felt like a rejection because no one was hiring me. So it had to be me. It had to be something that I didn't have, something that I, maybe didn't have enough experience, or maybe they just didn't like me as a person. I started to look at this very, in a very small way and just trying to say, well, this is my fault. The reason why I didn't get this job is because whatever, they didn't like my face, or, maybe they didn't like the way I spoke, or maybe it basically was just me. Anything and the reason had to do with me, which
So
meant
the
the
yeah,
perception. Yeah.
yeah, the perception that we have when the result does not go our way. We had a whole topic about that called failing, right?
Yes.
When what we expected to happen didn't happen, then it's not only a failure, but it's now a rejection. And your perception when something like that happens is it must be me.
Yeah.
It wasn't the job, it was something that I was missing. It was about me.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Like when somebody feel rejected and they feel like they are not worthy of what they got. Like, how does that translate in their head?
Well, let's just, okay, you're rejected, you've been told you don't have this job or that, the relationship didn't work or whatever your rejection that you're feeling, you immediately, this is just a human thing that you go to yourself first and you go, oh gosh, I must not, you know, be good enough. I must not be valuable enough. I must, not look right or I must, there's always an attack on self, that it is you that is the problem and not just a situation that happened.
Why do you think that is? Why do we blame us immediately when we don't get what we want?
I believe it is just your brain trying to find an answer. That you need to come up with a reasoning, and the quickest and most acceptable, form at that point is for you to in on yourself. It's the only thing that makes sense in your brain at that point. Without thinking, it is a, automatic, and especially if you've been conditioned to do that all of your life, that it is
Right.
always your fault. Maybe you were told that it was your fault. And so immediately you go into that mode where you're like, this is, something of my doing.
Yeah. In fact, I think that that goes first, right? Let's talk about rejection in that way. I know your first example was a career example where you got fired,
Mm.
but the rejection starts way earlier in our lives, right?
Absolutely.
Even like at home, before you go to school, when you go to school, you get rejected. And so when you get rejected, and like we are not born, we're not born with, this attachment of sadness and failure with rejection.
Right.
When you're not picked, it doesn't feel like anything when unless somebody tells you it's a bad thing,
Right.
right? And so when you're not picked, you're not picked. Nothing happened. But then somebody says, nobody picked you because you're the worst. Nobody picked you because you stink. Nobody picked you because X, Y, and Z. And now, when you're not picked later in life, you go back to those feelings. I know why, because I'm not good. I must have stink that day, or, they didn't like my hair. Or something happens at home, right? And you get a negative result, and somebody says, see, I told you to study more. See, I knew you're not going to get it. Look at your hair. It looks so messy. How did you show up at school like that? Of course, they didn't pick you.
Right.
And so when you go to work, you get rejected, then you say, it must have been the way I looked. Because
Right.
somebody told you at some point that you didn't get there, that you didn't get the results because it had to do with your appearance.
Right.
So somebody must have taught you that because you're not born with this type of perspective. You'll learn this type of perspective. And because you learn how rejection equals something about you is the justification, and there's some evidence that they have already formulated for you, all of a sudden that sticks.
Yeah.
And so when something later on in life you get rejected, you go right back to that first identity that you created. Because the first time that something happened, it was because of something. And so now it's happening again. It must have been the same thing.
Right.
How
This
could it
is
be
all
different? I'm the same
conditioning.
person. I'm the
Full
same person.
conditioning. Yeah.
Ex- Yeah.
You've been taught, like you said, you fail a test, you didn't study hard enough, or you may not even understood it. Maybe it was something that you did. So there was a reason behind that this failure or this rejection. And you immediately, because for years ago, someone told you or something, went where you had you were blamed or you were told that it was your fault. And you immediately start going into that mode of it must be me. It all must be me. I am the one that is not doing what I need to be doing, and that's the reason why. And putting yourself in that position always lends to more and more of it.
Right. And that's serious, right? Because some
Very.
people they don't understand, right? They immediately think, wow, now what is going to happen, right? And so what happens, like you're rejected. Now you have this feeling of sadness, right? Or maybe angry. Some people get angry because they got rejected, or they get revengeful, right? Like they now are like, I'm gonna go back. When does rejection become motivation?
When you reframe it,
Tell
you
me
know,
about that.
when I had to decide, and this is a decision that you have to make for yourself, is when you decide that what rejection means to you. When I had to decide what that was, and it's not, it's information. It's not an indictment. That it is, like I said before, it is not a value, not a verdict on me personally of my worth. It is just a piece of information. And what am I going to use this piece of information to do? Is it, to reframe timing? Maybe it's just not the right time, or maybe it's the direction, or maybe it's the fit, maybe it's not the right fit, like whatever it is, it's telling you something. What is it? And in trying to sit with that for a minute and go, I've been rejected. What do I need to shift? Whether it be in myself and how I feel about it, or maybe it's something that I need to do in order to get. Maybe it's additional training on something. Whatever it is that you've decided that that message was about, that is how you're able to move forward with it. Some people don't do that, and they sit in this soup and I use that often. They sit in the soup of the rejection, and they think that it is now the end all be all of how your life is going to be. You've been rejected, and then that's it. There's no moving from here. This is the final test.
Yeah, that's when they have attached to their identity to the
Through the
rejection
rejection, correct.
because it felt so harsh, right? And that's what rejection normally does, right? So when people are so afraid of rejection because something happened, they had a traumatizing situation or experience with rejection, what happens is they start distancing themselves from people. They start distancing themselves from opportunities and experiences because they don't want to be rejected again. That was too painful. I don't want to put myself in another situation where this could happen again. But what end up happening is you're manifesting more rejection because what happens when you're not attending anything and you're not going anywhere and you're distancing yourself?
Yeah.
You're auto rejecting yourself. So you end up manifesting more rejection from the world because you are afraid of rejection. So sometimes what you're afraid of is leading you towards it.
And
You
you
have to
highlighted it. It's that fear, right? That fear of rejection becomes louder in the loudest thing possible. And then you're stuck in this position. You can't move. You're afraid to do absolutely everything and anything, whether it be a job or a relationship or, just any relationship, you're just stuck and you don't want to move anywhere because you don't want to feel that pain of not being chosen or not, getting the thing that you want.
Yeah. And that's the thing about rejection, right? Sometimes rejection happens in your mind before it actually happens,
Yeah.
you know? And when somebody, for example, wants a raise, they already anticipating, oh, I might be rejected. They don't say, I might not get the raise. They say, I might be rejected,
Yeah.
right? And what is that going to mean to me? And now they're going to start anticipating what's going to happen. They're not going to give it to them. It's going to feel awkward at work. What am I going to do? Do I need to get another job? And then you start overthinking, all without any of it happening.
Yeah.
Sometimes the rejection takes you there too. It leads you to overthink about something. And the truth is, you're not afraid of rejection. You are afraid of what you anticipate will happen if you were rejected.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that happens way before the action, way before. People don't want to, they have hard time sleeping. They don't want to wake up in the morning. They're so afraid of what's going to happen if they get rejected. And so they call in sick. They're like, you know what? I'm not going to show up because they're so
Yeah.
afraid of rejection. But what's happening is they're anticipating a situation and how they're going to see the rejection, even if they haven't gone through it. And that's what actually causes us to fear rejection. We don't fear the action. We fear this entire story
Yeah.
that we tell ourselves about rejection. But that didn't happen to you, Marina. What happened to you instead?
What happened to me once I got clear with my own definition of what rejection was to me. So, for example, I lost my job, I sought another job. If that job didn't work, I got rejected, I sought a different path. If that path didn't work, or I felt rejected in some way, then I moved on to something else. And that's what led me to coaching to begin with, because I had to find that path for myself. And through a series of rejections, whether it be of my own making or ones that are actually in front of me, those opportunities ceased to exist. They ceased to be. And that wasn't, it was my choice to say that this isn't a rejection on me. This is just a different path that I'm going to be taking. I had to remove this, like what you were just discussing, that doomsday scenario spiral that just you get your head in this moving, what if I never find a job again? What if I never make money again? What if, I say something? What if I say something that is going to stop me from doing the thing that I want to do? What if I, make a wrong facial expression? What if I'm not wearing the right thing? What if, whatever. And again, you go into this spiral. I had to stop. I had to stop and I had to say, what do I want rejection to be for me? And
Mm.
when I chose it to be a piece of information, when I chose it not be the verdict of my worth, though that changed everything in how I thought of rejection.
That deserves a round of applause.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. But no,
That's
seriously,
beautiful.
it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. That's a beautiful thing to say because when rejection becomes information, then you can do something about it. It means it has nothing to do with your feelings. Because once you attach a event or a situation to feelings, it becomes an identity.
Right.
And identity is very hard to let go of, but you can let go of the situation. And so if it's information, right? Like something didn't happen, what do I need to see in order to change?
Yeah,
What am I not seeing that happened that I didn't see?
yeah.
What kind of information did I miss in this?
As you're talking and again it resonates with me on a different level. My divorce was a rejection.
Let's talk about that.
With
How?
and again, this is part of the relationships. If I were to have viewed my because my husband, my ex-husband left me, and if I viewed it as just a rejection, I would still be stuck in it. I'd still be stuck in the soup. Like something that and again, I started out the journey feeling like if I did something different or if I was a different, I had to stop that and go, this is just what is this experience to me? What is it supposed to have taught me? In trying to break down what it wasn't about me. The divorce, wasn't specifically about me, but I was able to take a look at the whole picture and understand that there was a rejection because we weren't aligned. There was a rejection because I wasn't living who I'm really supposed to be. that the both of us were using this and putting on masks all day long, every day for decades, and that we were like just done with it. Just done with it. Both of us were just done with it. He just is the one that had the balls to do it. So it wasn't necessarily a rejection of me per se. This was just a rejection of the way that were living and the way that we were carrying ourselves in life. And
Wow.
once I changed the thought that this isn't a rejection, this is a lesson, this is a piece of information, it changed the way that I moved forward.
That's beautiful and so relatable to so many people
Yeah.
because even in those relationships, right, where it doesn't work out, I have, I know people very close to me who have gotten divorces before and have gone through the process, and each person obviously leave a certain way. And but in a sense, they all feel like that there was a failure and one person was rejected because it was one party that asked for the divorce, and so the other part feels rejected,
Yeah.
right? And so there is this rejection, but the way that you took it is so beautifully as a lesson learned, right? It's really a lesson that you can take. What wasn't working? What is this opportunity giving me? And it's something that I say often to my clients is, nothing is created or destroyed. It's reutilized and moved, right? And so I think because sometimes there are losses or rejections, if you will, what is it that you're gaining from it? Because every time you lose something, you're also gaining something.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't see it right away because it's
Sometimes,
painful,
yeah, sometimes
because,
it's just a matter of not what to do. I'm never going to do
right.
that again. You know,
Well, it's
you're just,
painful too. Like to
yeah,
hear a no in any way, shape, or form,
so true.
sometimes to hear a no, right? Because I think because there's effort involved in it, even if you didn't want it. Let's say you didn't want the job, but you're like, I'm going to try it because you had the effort, because you went through the interviews, because you thought that, like most of your skills were aligned what they wanted. When you do receive, I'm sorry, we went with someone else, it does sting a little,
Yeah.
right? Because there's a lot that happened that it could have been a yes, right? And so there's like this hope that dies immediately,
Yeah.
right? And so there is a little bit, in the rejection, there is sadness, but it's when you reframe it, like you said, what is the information that this is giving me? You know, is this really for me? Right? I know I was trying and I put an effort, and that's why it stings now, but was it really aligned to what I wanted? Was it what I wanted in the first place? What did I gain from this experience? Maybe you talked to somebody about in one of the interviews about one of your skills and
Yeah.
you forgot something, then now you have an opportunity to go back and maybe learn a little bit more for the next opportunity. Or
Yeah.
maybe you get someone who you just found out that knows another person in this other company. And because you did an interview with them, you can actually reach out to them and say, hey, I know this didn't work, but I see that you're connected to this other person at this company, and I really want to talk to them, and maybe they will introduce you. So you always gain something in the doing,
Yes.
right? That's why action is so important. Because some people, when they're afraid of rejection, they pause, they don't go, they don't move. They're so afraid that they become stagnant,
Right.
that they're really just afraid to act. Like, if I do it, I'm going to fail. So I might as well just stay right here. And the problem with that is learning lessons only happens in the action. You have to do something in order to learn. You can't learn anything from not doing anything.
So true. So, so true. And this is the doing. This is the, rejection, using the rejection as a teacher. Use it as like, what is this supposed to show me? What is this showing me? Oh, I won't do this. Or maybe I need to learn, like you said, maybe I need to learn something else. What not to do, how to refine it, whatever it is that use your discernment. This is you, this is a not having having this. this happen is a beautiful experience because it does teach you things. It is painful, it is awful when it happens. It challenges you. This is the challenge within the rejection. It challenges you. Are you rising to the challenge to understand what this is supposed to be teaching you?
I love that. And also asking the question if it was a rejection in the first place,
Yeah.
because rejection itself has such a bad connotation. It
Yeah.
doesn't, it's just already to most people attached to something
Yeah.
negative. And so I think asking yourself, was this really a rejection? Will help you reframe, will help you now at least open your idea, your mind to suggestion. Could this be something else?
Yeah.
And I think that's important to do. This is
Yeah.
really
It's
rejection.
so good. I mean, it's you're out of alignment. It could literally just be that. It could be something that is not supposed to be meant for you. Maybe it is something that will make you think, like you said, maybe there's a person, maybe there's an experience that's coming down the pike that you don't know what's happening, and you needed to be, told no at this point in order to reach that next thing. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a person that you want to date. You get a rejection from that person because there's something else coming down that is supposed to be more aligned to you. Just looking at it just on a very, super focused way instead of looking at it from a larger way, it does put you in more pain. You look at it from a larger way, you can say, there's possibility here. All right, I didn't get this. I got more possibility. There's hope. There's hope that I can find someone else. What is it about me that I need to work on? Maybe this is the time. Maybe it's time, where you go, okay, I don't have this relationship. I need to work on me now. Maybe that's what the message is. This is all a you thing. This is
Yeah.
understanding where you are on your own journey. Everyone has their own path, but
Yeah. But
using,
I
yeah.
wouldn't ask that question right after the rejection because I don't want anybody to think that there is something to work on because it
Oh,
happened, right? And I totally understand where you're coming from
yeah.
because that is a great opportunity for you to work on yourself, but not because of the rejection,
No,
right?
no,
It's
no. And I didn't mean it. Thank you
I,
for
I
that. Thank
know.
you for that clarity
I know.
because that's not what I mean. But what I meant was that just because you didn't get the thing isn't the end.
And it doesn't mean anything. It really
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything. We put meaning to the result that we got.
Yeah.
We put meaning to the
Yeah.
result, right? And so when we put meaning to the result, that's what it is, right? And so if you put meaning that you need to work on yourself, then that's actually not okay because now every time you get rejected, you feel like that there's something for you to work on. And
Right.
sometimes it's nothing to do with you. The rejection is not a reflection of who you are. The rejection is just information, literally just information. You don't need to work on yourself because you were rejected. It's an opportunity for you to work on yourself, right? But it's
Exactly.
also an opportunity to celebrate because the moment that you completely detach rejection with sour and sadness and feeling of abandonment, the better it is for you.
Yeah.
Here's a tip that I normally tell people because I do it at home, a practice, right? So my husband's a real estate agent, and sometimes he gets appointments with families and he doesn't get signed, or they're signing off on a house and they don't get the house. Last year, a few times when my husband was really sad about it, and I was drinking, I would literally go in my fridge and I would open a champagne, a bottle of champagne. And he was like, "What? Like, this is not a celebration." And I go, "It needs to become one.
Yeah.
Because if this didn't happen, better will happen." My friend Marina says this or better. You taught me that, right? And so when we see rejection as a point of redirection, that's something to celebrate. And I mean
So
it.
true.
right? And so I do that, when he's feeling really sad and he's like, "Oh, I didn't get it." And I go, "Let's cheer to that. Let's open a champagne and let's cheer to that." you know and to some it might sound like crazy, right? This is a sad moment, but the reality is we label rejection the way we do.
Yeah.
It's a sad feeling, this is a sad moment, or we can choose something else. And so if you choose that rejection is redirection, if you choose that your client didn't get a house because there's a house coming that is going to be much better for them, then that's a great way of looking at it, right? Like then
Oh
it's
my
no longer.
gosh. That's incredible. You change your nervous system. You change the way you completely have operated on this level by cheering and saying, yes, something else is down the horizon that I didn't get this. I'm going to have something else is so huge to yourself, to your body, to your mental state, to, just how you are resonating. Your energy is different. When you've chosen, and again, this is all a choice on how you view rejection.
And the more you choose to reframe it, because it feels so uncomfortable at first.
Oh,
Let's
absolutely.
When you're in the thick of it, when you're in the feeling and somebody is trying to celebrate, it doesn't feel good, right? But when you start doing it again and again and again, and like you said, it reprograms your nervous system, all of a sudden, the second or third time that you're celebrating, it's not going to feel like a horrible transition anymore.
Right.
And so that's what the repetition does, right? It's the redirection becomes easier and easier and easier. The choice at first might not feel normal. It might feel uncomfortable trying to choose something else because your body is saying, "No, but I want to feel sad."
Right.
But the more you do it, what you're doing is you're practicing to reframe,
Yeah.
to redirect, to feel a different way, and to take power over your feelings. Because we do also have a choice to feel things, right? So
Yeah.
that's important.
Very, very much so. You taking the pain. Pain is normal. The pain of rejection is normal. Let's just make that very clear. Everyone feels that the little twang. Sometimes it's a little pinprick. Sometimes it's a big slice in your heart, right? One way or the other, you're still feeling that pain. Knowing that that is normal. It's all about what you do next. What do you do next after you feel that pain? What do you turn it into? How do you change your, like I said, the wiring, the nervous system to train it to go, this is just a piece of information. Now what am I doing with it?
Yeah. And also being honest with yourself. I
Yes.
think that's also very important for you to feel vulnerable and be able to feel how you feel.
Yeah.
When I say I celebrate, I don't mean to completely disregard the feeling,
Right.
because I think it's also important to feel the sadness. If you are feeling really sad about anything that happened, make sure that you do feel. Don't be afraid to lean in.
Yeah.
I feel abandoned. I feel rejected. I feel like a failure. I feel like this was not what I was anticipating, and it actually happened to me.
Yeah.
I feel so sad right now because I really thought this was going to happen and he didn't. And he feels so ugly inside and he feels this size, big or small, like you said. It feels like a knife through my heart, or he feels like this rock in my throat. Whatever he feels, make sure that you do feel it. Don't abandon yourself and your feelings, but you can also feel it, and your nervous system only need a few seconds, 90 seconds before it completely releases. So feel that feeling and then redirection.
Yeah. It is like you had mentioned earlier. You're saying that you're not the failure. You're not the, you're not internalizing it. It doesn't become part of your identity. It is an experience you had. You process the emotions that you're feeling regarding it, and then you learn a way to move forward. And the way, that I have been able to use this is that this is information. It's about rejection. It's about all the negative, energy that I feel. I try to feel and then assess what it is that it's supposed to be for me. What is this? Am I supposed to learn from this? What am I supposed to learn?
I love this. This is a great conversation because I feel like rejection is something that, like we said earlier, happens to all of us, and we feel different ways about rejection. But I think we have a lot to learn from today's lessons because it really is like
Yeah,
how we identify rejection, how we see rejection, and how we label it, and what
yeah,
type of information we're getting from the rejection, and what are the things that we can do about it, right?
definitely.
So, what are some of the things, Marina, that you would say to our audience to do if they're feeling rejection, just by whatever's happening to their lives right now, wherever they are in their
Yeah.
lives right now?
Like you had mentioned, feeling the feelings that you are having, like you said, I'm a failure, this hurts, where's the pain coming from? Assessing what it's telling you. It could really be, the sense of you're not feeling worthy, like, but what is making you feel unworthy? Understanding yourself on that level, understand what it is that you need and want. What need are you not receiving? What is not being met at this point? Because generally, when we seek something, we're just really trying to satisfy a need. And it could be a need for love, it could be a need for money, it could be, desperation, because you haven't had it in a long time. Whatever need that you were trying to get from that, and being rejected is just another stab in the heart that you're not supposed to get it. Pause. I implore you to pause after you have those feelings. Take a breath and understand that these are messages, these are lessons, that using rejection as a teacher, using a rejection as information, allows you to understand where you're next, even if it's a tiny little step forward. How do you step forward and you know process and deal and move forward? Again, rejection is more of a redirection than a rejection of you.
I love what you said. Oh, that's so beautiful because that's one part of this, what you said right now, we did not talk about earlier, which is when we start being vulnerable with ourselves about what really happened during that rejection, is where we see that there is a need that was not met,
Yeah.
that was not fulfilled. And additionally to what we said about assessing and about being vulnerable, it's also being available to that version of you. After you find out what you really feel about being rejected, find yourself available to that version of you to soothe you, because you are able to go and soothe that version of yourself that needs care, that needs a hug, that needs something from you, that needs maybe more care, that needs rest. And so become available to that part of you that is needing something at that moment. Become a support system to that person that you see suffering, because that is huge help and something that we didn't talk about it yet. So thank you for pointing that out. That's beautiful.
You're very welcome. These are absolutely necessary when understanding yourself and understanding, what gets you going. What is your zhuzh? What you had mentioned in a previous episode that and understanding me, that you have your own flow. Each one of us has our own flow. What gets us up in the morning? What gets us excited? That isn't something that is being pushed on us, not something that is being maneuvered. You just do because it's something that you feel good about. It's something that you want to be doing. And when you're in that sort of flow and something like that happens, where rejection happens, you could take a look at that and go, okay, what is it that I wasn't that I needed from this experience that I'm not going
Mhm.
to have as experience. So what did I want from this experience? So whether it be, like I said, love, or just wanting to be a part of something. I think a lot of us just want to feel like we're a part of something. So whether it be a part of a job, a company, a relationship, you just are desperate to be a part of something that the rejection of it, it becomes so internal. So what and where can you find that elsewhere? Once you recognize what it is, the need that were looking for within that experience that you got rejected on, where can you find that elsewhere? And most of the time, you can find it in self.
Yeah, I would say in self, not elsewhere. The first place to look is within you
Yeah,
because you know you more than anybody else.
yeah,
So I would suggest not to look anywhere else. Look within yourself. But if you are curious, I tend to be very practical about the things that I don't get. So if you are practical and you want to know more, don't be afraid of asking. Why was I not it? Why was I not chosen? What was in the process that I was missing? Because I know it's not attached to my value, right? It's attached to my effort, not
mhm,
my value. And because it's attached to my effort, I can change my effort. So,
yeah,
what in my effort can I change in order to get it the next time or to get it somewhere else? So, if you have that practicality and you want to do that, then I would suggest you do that. Like, if you do get rejected anywhere, to ask the question, why was I, like, why did you decide to go with someone else? Is there a tip? Is there any skills that you wanted to see that you didn't see that I had? What would be some of the things that I could practice now so that in a year I can become a part of this? So there are ways of you to remove your value, yourself and your identity from what happened and then move more practical about it. And I think that that's important too.
that's
But if
important.
if
Yeah,
you had to look somewhere else, that's where I would go.
that's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, we've spoken a lot about it in a job part of you, but even in my discussion of the relationship and losing a relationship, losing a marriage, which is something so huge, um, taking away the me part of the situation and understanding what it was that I needed to learn from this. And because of that rejection, it opened up more doors for me to learn what my value of love was. What did I really want from a relationship? Was it just love? Or did I
Mhm.
want to have, a more deeper connection with somebody where I didn't have it with my original marriage. So I was like, that became a new value to me. I was able to learn that I needed to have something deeper, something more uh, meaningful to me. Because of that rejection, I learned that lesson.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and can see a lot of people can relate to that. Thank you for going there because that's true. Sometimes, in order for you to find your values, you need that rejection, right? Or you need something not to work,
Right.
right? That is why it's such a good piece of information because sometimes you think, oh, I want to do that. Or maybe even like, I want to be a housewife. And then you become a housewife and you hate it. And you're like, oh, I thought I wanted to do this,
Yeah.
but I don't want to do this, or, in other cases of relationship, right? I can see how people say, this is what I want. And then as soon as they get it, they're like, oh, but there's this other part of this coin that I didn't want to be a part of. So I guess this is not important for me. So in the rejections that happens in life, it actually helps you deepen your relationship with your values and create different values. So that is more and more aligned to you.
So true. How many awakenings, how many major shifts in life and that happened from massively awful situations? There's countless. I mean, you could, most of the people who, I listened to, Mel Robbins, and, they all started with something awful happened, and, a rejection happened. and that they were able to turn it into something so good. And that's all
Absolutely.
because of their thought process. The thought process was is that yes, this happened, but I'm going to use whatever information that I have from this and I'm going to turn it into something good.
That's beautiful. That's great. I love this episode. I hope you
You too. Yeah.
I can't wait to talk to you again. The next one
Yeah.
will be about love, since we're getting very close to Valentine's Day
Yes.
and what
Languages
that
of
means.
love.
So, we'll see you next time. My
Yes.
friend.